They took a deep breath like, I don't think I'm gonna make it this time.
I can't breathe. And that was the last thing I ever heard him say.
This is what Suge told us. He took a deep breath like, this time I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Tupac's final words before being incubated in a hospital and eventually passing away had either been profanity towards a cop or telling his bodyguard he was unable to breathe. Tupac's former bodyguard Frank Alexander, who had been on the scene, claimed Tupac had been struggling to draw a breath from the injuries he had suffered. Tupac's group artist Napoleon had revealed what Suge Knight had told them Tupac's last words were, being during the ambulance ride to the hospital. He claimed Tupac had taken a deep breath and said he didn't feel as if he was going to make it this time.
They took a deep breath like, I don't think I'm gonna make it this time. This is what Suge told us. He took a deep breath like, this time I don't think I'm gonna make it.
Tupac's group artist Idi Amin had described Tupac as being extremely calm while waiting for the ambulance, as he had experienced being shot before.
I just remember how calm he was. He's calm like this because he went through this before. He knows not to panic.
The scene contrasts the chaos of the Biggie incident, which had occurred 6 months later, as the recorded phone calls from police operators reveal a tense scene where people believe Biggie's final words have been caught on tape.
We're man shot in our car right now.
The VH1 series Famous Crime Scene released audio which is claimed to be from police operators responding to the initial reports of the Tupac incident.
I repeat, shots fired. Possible victim. This unit in pursuit of vehicle. Need assistance. Leaving the vicinity of Koval and Flamingo, proceeding westbound.
With the Tupac case being taken to court as of 2023, unreleased media has surfaced which reveal more footage from Tupac's last moments on Earth, including his last words. In this video, we're going to take a look into the last pieces of media surrounding the final moments of Tupac Shakur. Tupac's last ever word on wax come from a studio session which he had had a day before the incident had occurred, which resulted in his passing. Tupac was known for recording 3 songs a day in the studio, with those who had experienced the sessions with him, such as artist E40, had claimed Tupac's lyric writing speed had been as if he was copy and pasting it, being from how quickly he would write the verses. Engineers Tommy D and Lance Pierre had been behind Tupac's final studio session, with the last 3 songs he recorded being All Out, Let's Get It On, and Hell for a Hustler. Tommy D described getting a phone call from engineer Lance Pierre being from a cheaper studio which Tupac had been booked in. Lance Pierre had described Tupac as causing a scene at the cheap studio, where he had been going around breaking equipment while on the phone to Suge Knight, where he had been complaining about not being booked at his regular professional studio of Can-Am. A new studio session had then been booked at Track Records, which had been a higher quality studio. Furman Smith, also an engineer, had been at the Track Records studio and overlooked the session. Furman Smith claimed Tupac had been the fastest artist he had ever worked with.
On that last night working in the studio, Pac was relaxed and having fun, but engineer Scott couldn't believe how productive he was.
So then the food and everything comes in, everyone's eating, everyone's having a good time, drinking. Next song's done. All right, I already got lyrics for it, let's go.
Sometimes he'd write his lyrics down. When we leave, I'd look at the lyrics. There was never a misspelled word, and there was never something crossed out like, keep rewriting. It was just all the words spelled correctly, which maybe had to do with the fact that he always kept saying, I'm going to be dead, they're coming to get me, they're coming to get me. So I think he wanted to get as much done as he could.
Furman revealed the itinerary of the day was for only 1 song scheduled, which had been for Let's Get It On. The song was going to be used for Mike Tyson's entrance against Bruce Seldon, being for about the following day in Las Vegas. Tupac's bodyguard Frank Alexander was known for filming Tupac's studio sessions, such as seen from this session a few months prior. Frank Alexander's hard drive of 83 gigabytes had been auctioned in 2021, which included the final studio session ever recorded. Artist Spice One had told Vlad TV a different story about the final studio session, as he claimed he had been with Tupac where he had recorded the song called Fame. Fans believe Spice One had confused the last song he had recorded with Tupac as being the last song Tupac had ever recorded. Furman claimed Tupac had been in a studio session with his group The Outlaws, and Suge Knight had shortly arrived in the BMW, which would later be riddled with bullets months in less than a day. Tommy D revealed how Suge Knight had ordered a large amount of food for everyone at the studio, which Lance Pierre would go on to call the Last Supper. Furman claimed Tupac and the Outlaws along with Suge Knight had left, with Tupac taking a limo. The engineers stayed in the studio mixing Let's Get It On, for it to be taken to Las Vegas the following day. Tupac had then travelled to film the music video for Toss It Up. The Toss It Up music video ties into the 7-Day Theory urban legend, which had spread online in the early days of the internet. The 7-Day Theory urban legend ties into Tupac's final album Machiavelli the 7-Day Theory. The urban legend looks into a series of coincidental numerology in relation to the number 7, which had applied to the final moments of Tupac's life.
In the Toss It Up video, he broke the mirror with the bat. That's 7 years bad luck right there. And also in the film Gridlock, when they was in the cafe looking at the menus, all the L's was upside down 7s. And in the film Gang Related, Tupac badge number had the number 115 on it. Tupac was 25 when he died. 2 plus 5 is 7. And on top of all that, he died at 4:03. 4 plus 3 is 7, you do the math.
One such instance occurs in a Toss It Up video recorded a day prior to the incidents which had caused his passing, where in the video he smashes a mirror with a bat, equating to 7 years of bad luck. Tupac would then travel to Las Vegas for the Mike Tyson match. Tupac had left his Calabasas mansion on the morning of September 7th, 1996, in order to head to Las Vegas. The song recorded for the Tyson match had also made its way to Las Vegas, but this wasn't the only reason why Tupac was traveling there. Tupac had to serve community service at a Las Vegas nightclub called Club 662. Prior to the trip to Las Vegas, Tupac had broken a 3 strikes law in California. Tupac had been out of prison on an appeal created by attorney David Kenner, who had been the principal business attorney and defense attorney for Suge Knight's label. Tupac risked being sent back to prison for violating the 3 strikes law in California. David Kenner had the case moved to Las Vegas to circumvent the law. Conditions had been granted by a judge that Tupac would serve in benefit for a Las Vegas Metro cop called Patrick Barry, being at a fundraiser held in Club 662. David Kenner worked with the club's business attorney George Kalisis to create a fundraiser at 662 on a night, being in benefit for the cops' organization called Barry's Boxing. Many athletes had been on the guest list, such as Mike Tyson and Tommy Hearns. The conditions of it being held in Las Vegas had created a security failure with Tupac's bodyguards, being due to a lack of permits in Nevada. Over a dozen of Tupac's bodyguards had been called to a meeting at George Kalisis' home and had been told to disarm themselves due to permit restrictions. Tupac would usually have a 2 or 3 man bodyguard detail. However, after bodyguard Michael Moore had refused to disarm himself, he had been removed from Tupac. Tupac was then left with 1 unarmed bodyguard, being Frank Alexander. Tupac had been seen in an orange shirt within several casinos in Las Vegas, gambling with $10,000. Frank Alexander during this time had lost contact with Tupac, as Frank had been forced to use a payphone to contact the security team, as his usual security radio had been removed from him during the time. Frank Alexander then caught up with Tupac, and they had waited for Suge Knight to arrive at the MGM Grand in order to attend the Mike Tyson match. With the match lasting just over a minute, Tupac's final interviews would take place as he exited from the match. Tupac, visibly amped up, had carried out his final interview with Cornell Wade of BET.
Gave an interview to BET, not knowing it would be his last.
Y'all see that? 50 points, I counted it. Everybody that go to jail come out, they got good luck.
Tupac can be seen with several Compton Mob Piru members associated to Suge Knight. Tupac had been put onto the MOB by members Trayvon Lane and Buntree, being at the request of Suge Knight. The MOB initials had been tattooed onto Tupac, displaying his allegiance to the set. Directly after leaving the interview, Trayvon Lane of the Mob Piru had spotted Southside Compton Crip Orlando Anderson standing in a lobby. With the Bloods and Crips already having a rivalry, The two sets had a distinct beef between each other after the Southside Compton Crips attempted to snatch Trayvon Lane's chain a few months prior. Orlando Anderson was also known to be associated to Puff Daddy and Biggie, who were the rivals of Tupac and Suge Knight. Tupac and Suge Knight, along with the Pyrus, had then jumped Orlando Anderson. Police reports claim witnesses had reported them as shouting they were untouchable while fleeing the scene. MGM Grand surveillance footage had captured Tupac and an entourage fleeing the scene, being followed by a large crowd of fans. Tupac had returned to his hotel room, while Suge Knight had gone to his Las Vegas residence. Tupac, while at the hotel room, had spoken to his girlfriend Kadada Jones, telling her about the altercation he had just had in the MGM Grand. Tupac had then placed his very last phone call to his Outlaws group members back in Los Angeles. Tupac was with 3 of his Outlaws members in Las Vegas, being Yaki Gaddafi, Idi Amin and Castro. The remaining members had been in Tupac's Calabasas mansion in Los Angeles. Tupac had called his Calabasas mansion where Outlaw Young Noble had answered, and Tupac had asked him to put Outlaw member Napoleon on the phone, but he had recently left the property. Tupac had then said to tell him that he had just knocked some dude out.
And Noble was like, Pac just called you. I said, what did he want? He said, all he said is, where's Moo? Tell him that I just knocked this dude out. Even to this day, I'm like, why the hell did Pac tell him to call me?
Tupac had then hung up the phone and changed his clothes to get ready for the event at Club 662. There has been speculation during this time as to why Tupac didn't put on a bulletproof vest. Idi Amin, who had been with Tupac at the hotel, claimed that Tupac had complained that Las Vegas was too hot to bring a bulletproof vest. Tupac's connection to bulletproof vests, however, had also been removed from him through security. Napoleon on his podcast in 2021 had revealed that bodyguard Kevin Hackey had been their connection into bulletproof vests, who had been responsible for supplying them for security. Kevin Hackey had been acting undercover for the ATF and FBI to infiltrate the record label by posing as a bodyguard. Napoleon revealed that Hackey had not only have been responsible for supplying them with bulletproof vests, but also weaponry. Napoleon theorized this could have been an operation by the ATF known as gun walking, where the agency supplies groups with weapons to keep track of them.
There was a guy named Hackey. He was a security guard. Come to find out, he was an undercover ATF, but he was selling guns to us. He was selling us guns, bro.
Was that the undercover purpose of it, though? Or
I don't know if that was saying sell them the guns. Maybe they were saying sell them the guns so we can keep track of them.
Yeah.
But he was selling us guns, and also he had a connection to bulletproof vests.
Kevin Hackey had been requested to work in Las Vegas on a night, which would have supplied Tupac with his usual bulletproof vest. However, Hackey revealed he had been assigned to work elsewhere on a night. Kevin Hackey's supply of bulletproof vests had then not only have been removed, but Hackey had also have been in possession of bodyguard Frank Alexander's radio. This left Frank Alexander without his security radio, cutting him off from being able to communicate with the detail. He had also have been unarmed by the attorneys earlier on in the day. Tupac, after changing his clothes, had then spoken Kadada Jones out of going with him to Club 662, being due to the altercation which had just occurred. During this time, Tupac had met up with Suge Knight, who was yet to have changed his clothes. After leaving Suge Knight's residence where he had changed, Tupac and Suge Knight had travelled in Suge's BMW, while Frank Alexander and the Outlaws had followed in Kadada Jones's car. A 3-car convoy had travelled with the BMW. In front had been K-Dub, on the side were Pyru members Buntry and Trayvon Lane, while behind were Frank Alexander and the Outlaws. Suge Knight and Tupac had been captured during this time in the very final pieces of footage of them being prior to the incident which had claimed Tupac's life. Tupac and Suge Knight had been captured in footage from bystanders on the streets of Las Vegas, being after Tupac had left his hotel. Suge Knight in the footage had not yet changed his clothes, indicating it had been captured prior to them making it to Suge Knight's residence for him to change. They can be seen talking to a group of women on a pavement, being somewhere outside in Vegas. The video shows Tupac's last conscious hug being with a 19-year-old fan called Andrea Jennings. The group of girls were in their late teens and early 20s who were vacationing in Las Vegas and had approached Tupac being fans of his. Andrea Jennings revealed how Tupac had invited the girls to ride with them in the BMW to Club 662, but the girls were traveling in a different car, so turned it down. The footage had been captured by a fan called Quentin Melson and then sold to the Walter J. Brown Media Archives. A 29-year-old former UCLA film student called Leonard Jefferson had later captured the last publicly available authentic photo of Tupac. While traveling on Harmon Avenue, the film student approached the BMW at a stoplight, noticing the rims first. He then recognized Tupac in the window and spoke to him, asking if he could take a picture. The convoy of cars had then traveled to Club 662, so Tupac could perform there and serve the community service. Las Vegas police had pulled over Suge Knight's BMW, being for not having license plates and playing music too loudly. The police had found the license plates within the trunk, and had then let Tupac and Suge Knight go. While at an intersection on Koval Lane and Flamingo Road, the BMW Tupac and Suge Knight had been in had been boxed in by the convoy of cars. A white Cadillac had pulled up beside the BMW and fired into it 13 times, hitting both Tupac and Suge Knight. A low-quality video on YouTube claims to show a fan capturing the last 4 shots fired into the BMW. However, several inconsistencies in the video footage outline it as fake. The footage is missing the presence of K-Dub's car, which had been present at the scene directly in front of the BMW. Suge Knight spoke on this car in the 2018 TV documentary American Dream, American Nightmare.
At the last minute, one of the little dudes who deal with Reg, he did something that he know not to do. He cuts in front of us.
The white car in the footage, besides what is supposed to be the BMW, had been in the real event Suge Knight's MOB Pyro Associates. Suge Knight claimed the car in that lane, which is seen in the footage, had been of Trayvon Lane and Buntree, who had pulled in beside them and told Suge to get over.
A road dog pulls in this lane, telling me to get over. As I'm proceeding to get over, the other car comes right there, which is a Cadillac.
The footage contains more inconsistencies, such as it missing the large plume of smoke reported by Frank Alexander after the shots had stopped.
And once it stopped, all you saw was all of this smoke going up in the air.
The footage also shows the BMW speeding off immediately with the Cadillac. Frank Alexander, however, confirmed that the Cadillac had taken off while the BMW stayed stationary momentarily, which gave enough time for Frank Alexander to run towards the BMW. K-Dub, who was in front of the BMW, had also claimed to have gotten out of his car and approached the BMW. He claimed to have seen Suge Knight clutching the steering wheel, looking shocked.
So I jumped out my car and ran back to the car, and then I said, you're all right, and he was just holding on to the steering wheel.
Kevin Hackey claimed to have seen paperwork which revealed federal agents had been in a car behind Frank Alexander's, and the agents had been recording the event under surveillance. He alleged that the surveillance has the shooter's identity and footage carrying out the crime. Once the Cadillac fled and the BMW became free from being in the boxed-in position, Suge Knight had made a U-turn and began driving frantically to find the closest hospital. Suge Knight, who had been hit in the head during the incident, had claimed the first words he had said after the shots had stopped had been "you hit," and Tupac confirmed he was. Suge Knight had claimed that Tupac had been joking to him about his head wound, while Suge Knight had been assuring him that he was going to get him to a hospital.
Pac said he was shot. I'm like, you shot? I'm finna get you to the hospital. I'm driving, telling him I'm finna get to the hospital, kick back. Pac looked at me and said, you know what? You need the doctor more than me. You the one shot in your head.
The BMW would soon come to a stop a few blocks away due to Suge Knight jumping several medians while panic driving, which had affected the BMW. The first responders would then soon arrive on the scene shortly after. The VH1 series Famous Crime Scene claimed to have released the audio of the police dispatch responding to the incident.
I repeat, shots fired. Possible victim. This unit in pursuit of vehicle. Need assistance. Leaving the vicinity of Koval and Flamingo, proceeding westbound.
Bicycle cops had made the dispatch and had given chase to Suge's BMW, which had been driving erratically. While chasing the vehicle, the cops had been updating its whereabouts over the dispatch. Chris Carroll, a bicycle cop who was on a patrol alone for the Tyson event, had responded to the dispatch and made his way to the scene. Chris Carroll claimed to have given chase to the BMW, which had hit a curb when making a left and then coming to a stop. The car had 2 blown out tyres from Suge Knight's driving, which included jumping several medians and hitting curbs. The BMW had come to a stop on Harmon Avenue, being the same place the final photo of Tupac had been captured just prior. Chris Carroll claimed Suge Knight and an entourage had gotten out of the cars by themselves. Suge Knight, Frank Alexander and the Outlaws, however, had claimed the police had pulled them out of the cars. It's unsure as to which story is authentic, as Chris Carroll claimed he had been alone on the scene in the very first moments of the cars coming to a stop, to which then they had all gotten out of the cars instead of Tupac. The Outlaws and others, however, claim that there had been a large police presence on the scene, not just one responding cop. Suge Knight and Frank Alexander, along with the Outlaws, had been instructed by the police to get on the ground. The BMW which they had been driving had a malfunctioning door on Tupac's side. Chris Carroll believed this was a result of the impact the door had taken, which had affected the handle. Napoleon from the Outlaws claims Suge Knight had told him that the door had been malfunctioning prior to the incident and had been difficult to open, with only Suge knowing how to open it.
And Suge also said, Suge, his BMW, the door was broke. And he was the only one able to lift it. Somehow nobody else can get it out. So while the ambulance tried to do it, the police had a shotgun to Suge's head. Don't move. And while he still jumped up while the police had guns and got Pac out.
Chris Carroll approached Tupac's door and attempted to open it, but he had struggled to do so due to it malfunctioning. Frank Alexander had then told the cops that Suge Knight was the head of a record label whose artist was wounded in the car. Suge Knight had then been allowed to get up and Jimmy open a door so Tupac could be removed from the car. Chris Carroll, however, claimed he had been the person who had opened the door, as Suge Knight had been approaching to assist. Witnesses at the scene, however, claimed it had been Suge Knight, as he was the only person who knew how to open the malfunctioning door correctly, as it had already been a problem prior to the incident. Chris Carroll described how as the door had opened, Tupac's body had fallen out of the car as he had been leaning from his injuries. Chris Carroll described how Suge Knight's head injury had been literally spurting, but he didn't seem fazed by it and was more concerned with the condition of Tupac. As Tupac was being pulled out of the car, Chris Carroll claimed Suge Knight had been repeatedly calling out to him to make sure he was still conscious. Idi Amin claimed that although Tupac was badly injured, he had remained calm under the circumstances.
I just remember how calm he was. He was calm like this because he went through this before. And he knows not to panic.
Tupac would then go on to utter some of his very final words on Earth. Tupac, while he had been being removed from the car by Chris Carroll, had been reported by Carroll as attempting to communicate with Suge Knight, who had been continuing to shout at him in concern. Carroll said Tupac was desperately trying to get words back to Suge Knight but was unable to draw breath properly due to his injuries. Carroll claimed Tupac, while making eye contact with Suge Knight, had been mouthing words without speaking, being in an attempt to communicate with him during the situation. Chris Carroll recognized the extent of Tupac's injuries and attempted to get a dying declaration off of Tupac. A dying declaration is testimony from a person who is about to pass on. In common law, the declaration within courts can be admitted as evidence in criminal law trials. Carroll claimed when he had first been attempting to get the declaration off of Tupac, Pac had been ignoring him as he had still been trying to communicate with Suge Knight. Carroll claimed to have then turned around in order to get Suge Knight to back off, and this was the first time he had noticed other police officers on the scene. Once Suge Knight had been removed by the police, Carroll claimed Pac had then surrendered and realizing he was unable to get words out, and had then became extremely calm, which had also been described by Idi Amin, who had been on the scene. Chris Carroll once again attempted to get the declaration from Tupac, and Carroll claimed Pac had then acknowledged him for the first time. Tupac then began to attempt to get his breath and told the cop "F you." Carroll claimed this had been Tupac's last conscious moment and his final words. However, this had been disputed by Frank Alexander and others. Tupac had been laid on the ground while waiting for paramedics to arrive on the scene. Idi Amin, Tupac's group artist, remembered being on the ground with Tupac as he had been forced by the police. The paramedic first responders carried out an interview in 2016 where they described what they had seen when arriving on the scene. They revealed when pulling the gurney out of the ambulance, they could hear somebody shouting out to Tupac. The paramedics revealed Suge Knight had been the first person escorted to the ambulance. They revealed how he had been more concerned with Tupac's condition than his own. When Tupac had been placed on the gurney, he would go on to say some more of his final words. Frank Alexander revealed in an interview with This Is 50 how he had been kneeling down next to Tupac while the paramedics were moving him from the floor onto the gurney. Frank revealed this had been the final time he had ever personally seen Tupac speak. He claimed while Tupac had been being placed on the gurney, he had been struggling with catching his breath. He claimed Tupac had then looked at him and said he couldn't breathe, to which he had crossed his arms over his chest and deeply exhaled.
I can't breathe. And that was the last thing I ever heard him say.
Tupac had then been taken inside the ambulance with Suge Knight and 3 police officers. The ambulance had also gotten a police escort to the hospital. Tupac's group artist Napoleon had revealed how Suge Knight had told him what the final words he had heard come from Tupac were, which had taken place in the ambulance. Suge Knight was reported as saying that Tupac, while struggling to breathe, had said to Suge Knight he didn't think he was going to make it out alive from the incident.
He took a deep breath like, I don't think I'm gonna make it this time. This is what Suge told us. He took a deep breath like, this time I don't think I'm gonna make it.
The ambulance had taken Tupac and Suge Knight to the University Medical Center in Las Vegas. The reason Tupac had been struggling to breathe had been as the worst of his injuries was a collapsed lung. The Dear Mama documentary, released in 2023, had showed scenes from the hospital which also displayed an X-ray revealing a bullet in the lung. As a result of what had taken place, Tupac had been placed under sedation into a medically induced coma and had been overseen in the ICU. The doctors performed emergency surgery where they had removed the affected lung and placed Tupac on a respirator. News reporters gathered outside the hospital and captured footage of several people visiting Tupac. MC Hammer was caught on camera at the hospital visiting Tupac. Yaki Gaddafi can be seen outside the hospital getting a pat on the stomach in support. Suge Knight can be seen outside the hospital with a wound to the head. Napoleon revealed how once the remaining outlaws had made it to Las Vegas, Suge Knight had met them in a hotel room where he had showed them further wounds he had on his chest. It had been at the hospital where bodyguard Kevin Hackey, who hadn't been available to provide the bulletproof vests, and also had removed Frank Alexander's security radio, had been revealed as an undercover asset for the feds. Police reports show that Kevin Hackey had been discovered as an undercover asset after he had been using the phone in the hospital reporting Tupac's condition back to the feds. He had also attempted to use his credentials against the staff to gain access of the hospital. Tupac had been in a comatose state in hospital, but he had remained receptive to visitors, with him having more interactions with people while incapacitated. Tupac's brother Mopreme Shakur had revealed that when he had visited Tupac, Tupac began to furiously shake the hospital bed as if he really wanted to tell him something but was unable to. Artist Danny Boy, who can be seen in the footage outside the hospital, had sung A Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke at Tupac's hospital bed, and it claimed tears began to roll out of Tupac's eyes. Further media of Tupac's last moments had been captured within the hospital. A reporter disguised as a hospital volunteer had made it past security into Tupac's room and either got photos or footage of Tupac in his final condition. Security guards then apprehended the person and confiscated the camera. It is the only existing media of Tupac in his very final condition, which remains as a piece of lost media as it has never surfaced. Although Tupac's lung had been removed and he had numerous internal surgeries, his injuries had still not begun to heal. Tupac had multiple cardiac arrests on September 13, 1996, and the doctors had revived him numerous times. Tupac's mother Afeni, when learning of this, had told the doctors not to continue with the revival. Chris Carroll would claim Tupac had practically already passed at the scene 6 days earlier, but the doctors were able to keep him alive. Dwayne Keith Davis, the uncle of Orlando Anderson, had been charged in relation to the Tupac case in September of 2023. Davis had been arrested after going on several internet platforms claiming to have been behind the incident, which he claimed had been retaliation for what had happened to Orlando Anderson in the MGM Grand. He bragged about such despicable things such as Tupac looking as if he was breakdancing while trying to dodge bullets, and further claimed the very first shot had hit Suge's head. He had gone on to say he had been on the corner with the Crips who he claimed had carried it out, being when the ambulance had passed by which had been carrying Tupac and Suge Knight. He had claimed himself and the Crips had laughed at the ambulance passing by, knowing that Tupac was in it and they were the ones to put him in that situation. Davis now recants his claims in court and his trial has been postponed until 2026. With the court case, new unseen material related to the case has been provided to the courts, which has since become available to the public. Some of the material which has been made available to the public includes extended CCTV footage within the MGM Grand, as well as crime scene photos of the BMW. More material has been provided to the courts which has not been made available to the public, such as unseen photos from Tupac's autopsy. Some claim there is dispatch audio from the scene which contains a recording of the paramedics placing Tupac on the gurney. This audio, if it really exists, would have captured Tupac's last words on tape. In this video, we took a look into the very last pieces of media related to the very last words of Tupac. Many different people on the scene give a different account of Tupac's final words, as they each have different experiences as to what Tupac had said to them. Chris Carroll being the first responder on the scene, who had attempted with getting a declaration from Tupac, claimed the final words he had heard Tupac say were F you. Frank Alexander, however, in his own separate experience, had claimed Tupac's final words to him were that he couldn't breathe. Suge Knight had revealed to the Outlaws that Tupac's final words in an ambulance to him were that he didn't feel as if he was going to make it out alive from the incident. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, smash the thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and press that bell button so you can get all the future notifications for when I upload. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.